let's get started here. All right. Thanks everyone for joining. Really excited to have this conversation today. This is our Replo Community Live event called Revenue Optimization with Staytuned and Novel. I'm joined today by Lauralynn Drury, VP of Experience at Staytuned, and Grant Kerwit, COO at Novel. And my name is Justin Wiley. I'm from the Replo team, and just going to give a quick intro on Replo, and then we'll pass it around and begin. So Replo is a visual web development platform that allows teams to create beautiful, high-performance landing pages on Shopify without the need for developers. Replo is light years ahead of other page builders when it comes to customization and page speed. We have a library of hundreds of proven landing pages and sections that anyone can use, as well as certified experts who can help build new pages in just a few days. We are recorded today, and this is going to be posted on YouTube after the event. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Lauralynn and Grant to make introductions, and we'll kick things off. So, Lauralynn.
Cool. Hello. I'm Lauralynn, and I am at Staytuned. And what we do over at Staytuned is we buy and build Shopify apps. Before this, I have been a merchant for many, many years on Shopify. I actually came over early days of Warby Parker when I kind of learned how to do long division by hand. And then I was watching what Shopify was doing. It was kind of like doing division with a calculator. So I jumped over and started working with brands going from 0 to 1 and 1 to 2 on Shopify. And I was always a little bit frustrated with the apps and the tools available, and thought they were just like wildly inconsistent in their product offering and their customer service. So I was really excited to join Staytuned and help make that better.
Cool. Hello, everyone. Grant Kerwit. I come from primarily a tech background where I started my career in HR and finance technology, but found myself in live streaming video technology. This is where we really found our love for e-commerce and the Shopify space. Novel is a shoppable video platform that empowers you as a brand to very easily, in a performant way, bring that shoppable experience to your website through the power of TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. So excited to be with everyone here today, and looking forward to diving in.
Amazing. That's great. Let's do it. So first question. So every other DTC tweet shares a hot new topic or tip on how to best optimize SEO to juice your checkout conversions from the latest app, or increase your LTV with the new pricing strategy. For folks with small teams, lean budgets, and an ever-growing list of urgent tasks, what are the top areas of the entire customer lifecycle they should focus on optimizing to get the highest return?
Yeah, I'll kick us off with this one. One thing that I talk to many brands about is really similar to the first time you meet someone in person, which is that first impression. And I think it's really key that everyone understands that when a shopper ends up on your website, on your piece of real estate, you have 15 seconds to hook them. We talk about the 15-second rule a lot because that's the average amount of time that someone stays on a site before they typically bounce. So if you don't want to be in that category where the consumer is bouncing more than the average, which is about 20 to 40%, you want to make sure that what's above the fold, so what they can see when they visit your website, is engaging, hooks them, and keeps them there. We look and track at Novel the average session time quite a bit because this tells us how often engaged that consumer is. The other thing that I'd add here is that if you're not communicating your value prop effectively, then you're also losing the consumer very, very quickly. So same theme to what I just spoke to a bit ago, but make sure that value prop is clear, right? If you're going to a website to buy toothpaste for, let's call it Colgate, right? I should understand what the differentiator or value prop of that toothpaste is. Lauralynn, anything you'd like to add there?
Yeah, one thought on what you just said is a good way of checking that is making sure that people outside your organization can go to your site and figure out what you do quickly. Like you start with friends, get some feedback from friends, and then go to people you don't know. But I'm often so surprised that brands don't do that. Or if they get feedback, they're like, well, you don't get it. You don't get it. And you're like, that's the point. If they don't get it, you got to change something. I think adding to that, some of this might sound really basic, but I think Grant and I are coming from a place where we see a lot of companies and some just don't do the basics right. I was working with a brand recently that their email footer collection wasn't collecting emails. It was going nowhere. And it had been like that for maybe a year, and they have a lot of site traffic. So I think do the basics right first, like have friends look at your site, QA your site. Does your nav work? Does your footer work? Do the links actually work? And then understand like what your conversion flow is. Make sure that you have Google Analytics linked up. That's another one I'm often so shocked. I'm like, all right, well, tell me about your conversion flow, where you're losing people. And people are like, I don't know, I could guess it's here. But you really have to make sure you're doing the basics right. And if you aren't, then any of these hot new tips you can't act on, and then you just get stressed out. Understand how your site works with your email and SMS efforts. Something that maybe we'll talk about a little later is this zero-party data. It's a hot term, but like, what does that mean? It means that you're collecting information direct from your customers that are specific to what you want to know about them. And you're going to have a really hard time doing this in a sustainable, scalable way, unless you have a really good understanding of how your tool, whether that's Klaviyo or one of their competitors, which I know they're expensive, but they're also the best. Whether that's Klaviyo, you're using PostScript, Attentive, how they work with your site and what tools you can use to get that data. And then I think here's another one. Before you do all the fancy things that people are talking about, after you understand what Grant mentioned of your unique value proposition, understand what that means for you in terms of where you need to innovate and where you just need to take best practices. So for example, I worked with a fake eyelash brand. And eyelashes are a very funny product where people want to see them on a face, but they also want to see them alone. So for that one, we invested in like a semi-headless approach on our product detail page so that we could super customize how the images worked, a little outside of the box for us because it was really important. So that's something we were innovating on. But a lot of the other parts of the site, we were like, no, this is good. We're just going to take like reviews out of the box. We're going to do this out of the box, but this is what we're going to innovate. So figure out what you're going to innovate on. Don't do everything. If you're doing everything, you're doing it wrong. And then as I mentioned a little earlier, like start to take it up a level once you've hit those. Bring quizzes into your site. Quizzes are awesome. There's some really great providers out there, from QuizKit, which is really easy to use, Jebbit, which is awesome, more robust, Octane AI, and all of these can sync back with your email and SMS tool so that you can start doing really cool things to collect that first-party data. And quizzes are great for conversion, whether you have a handful of SKUs or a lot. I just went through a lot of things there that were, but you'd be surprised at how many people try to take on the new hot idea without doing some of the basics right first.
Absolutely. Yeah, basics are so important. And then, things like quizzes will help, from a personalization perspective. Absolutely. So what are the most common ways brands can get themselves into revenue holes that are extremely difficult to dig out of?
I love that. Because when we think about revenue optimization, I think often we're thinking about making more money, like just getting more money on top. But if you're not thinking about like what's happening through that funnel from revenue to profit, you might be missing some things. I think the ways you can get into a lot of trouble there are signing contracts that you don't know the ramifications of. The amount of brands I've worked with, especially like apparel brands who have signed long-term contracts with their 3PL or a supplier, and then the business changes or the world changes, that can get you in a lot of trouble. And I'm not saying don't sign any contracts. I'm saying understand the terms of a contract. Another one could be a potential software vendor. Like understand what you're signing up for, how long you're going to use something, how sure of it are you? Bezos has this analogy of one-way door decisions and two-way door decisions, where you basically try to make decisions that you can make and then come back if you don't like it. So those are two-way door decisions, as opposed to ones that when you walk out of, you really can't open the door again. So if you can, try to introduce clauses that make something a two-way door decision. And if you can't, if it has to be a one-way door decision, bring in a consultant if you don't know what you're talking about with a 3PL. If you've never signed one up, find someone who knows more to help you through that process. Wholesale partnerships can also be like this. And oftentimes if you're a smaller brand or even just a big brand and you're working with a big wholesale partner, they define the terms and they have their own world of talking through it. You really have to be smart here. So again, maybe hire a consultant or an agency to help you through that. Let me think. Other common ways to get into revenue holes. Oh, if your team doesn't understand how you make money, with the idea of like democratizing understanding and decision-making in your organization, make sure your team knows how you make money, or else people are kind of in the dark when your team is pushing to make, hit some great sales goals or revenue goals. People are so creative on your team, but if they don't know the mechanics of how your company makes money from like when you get the materials till you produce your goods to you send them out, they're going to have a much harder time coming up with great ideas.
Something, Lauralynn, that you said, I think that I think range true on the basis one door, two door thought theory is if you can ask yourself, can this decision be reversed?
Yeah.
You should take that bias for action. We talk about this as a small team ourselves, is, take action, in ways that is meaningful. I think that one area that we see customers fall short on is really understanding how their website is built, right? Yeah. I think on the Replo side, you guys probably see this quite often, but there are so many apps out in the Shopify ecosystem. We talked about this a little bit earlier, Lauralynn and I, but the average brand has anywhere from 10 to 35 apps connected to their Shopify store. And I see it time and time again where a customer only knows how to use one or two of those applications, right? It's far too often that we see a website hasn't been updated for 5 years and the person who set it up is no longer with the company, right? So really, I think to the theme we talked about in just a few minutes ago, back to the basics, understand how the nuts and bolts of your really your business flow work. You will set yourself up for success. Revenue is partly about making money, but also about saving money in the areas where you've already invested.
Absolutely.
One thing to add on that, and this is a little off topic, but you were talking about knowing how to use the website. Related to knowing how to use the website, an area to empower your team and make your team a lot stronger is if you have designers on your team that are helping with build out the website and emails, they need to know that tool inside and out. They can't just make a design and hand it off to a developer. Those days are gone. I mean, a lot of brands still do that, but the great brands and the ones who can move really quickly are ones where the designers themselves understand the tool, because then they can understand how things can sit. Taking an idea of how to show a great new landing page and have a carousel, they understand how Replo works, or they want to incorporate a video into a different product feed. They understand how Novel works. So they're actually able to take like the desire and implement it much faster. So make sure they know how to use it. And if you aren't the one who can train them, all these companies have great trainings, from Klaviyo, which has a great university. Replo and Novel have amazing trainings as well to teach people. So it's just another way of making sure you know how to use your tools.
It definitely teach the team how to fish. I would say something that most people don't do that's at your disposal is asking for help or asking people around you how it works, right? Far too often, apps are downloaded without any context ahead of time. Referrals are your friend, right? They're at your disposal, to the point where, we work with brands, to provide them with a referral customer to talk to, so they can understand that experience and get the unfiltered, perspective of what it's like to implement a solution.
That's awesome. So, on the Stay Tuned side, Lauralynn, you all are buying apps out in the marketplace. Question for you is, on the buy versus build side, how do you think about buy versus build? How do you make a decision to build a custom functionality into a site, or to use like a third-party application? What are your thoughts on that?
This is one of my favorite topics. And one of the reasons I was so excited to come to Stay Tuned is because I think I think there's a lot of improvement that people can make in when they think about this. I think apps are an incredible tool for you, and they can be used to get you really far. I think one analogy I have is apps are kind of like renting a home, right? You get to have all the benefits, but you're paying a premium for the flexibility and features that you're using. And then building functionality into your site is like buying a home. Yeah, you get to totally customize it, but you also have to maintain it. And it has to work with everything else in your home, and that's on you. So I think it really comes down to the merchant thinking through, like, what are we innovating and what are we not innovating? What are we spending our money on, our fixed budget, and what aren't we? Not only that, but also teams need to think about, are they testing something or are they sure of something? One of my favorite apps that we operate is called Box Builder. And it's this super cool app that lets merchants make a custom box building experience for their customers. They can go on and through 5 steps, build their own customized gift box. And it's really, really cool and so powerful because the functionality that we offer these folks is really hard to build. Yet there are a few merchants, and this is their entire company based on our app. Like, their entire service is just custom products based on our app. And sometimes they come to us and want new, like, really niche features. And at that point, I have told them, like, listen, I think it's time for you to think about building this for yourselves. And our app is a steal of a price. So I'm sure that, like, cost benefit, they're like, hell no, we're not going to do that. But at some point you should think about that of, like, what are all the features you want? What are you paying? And ask people, if you're testing, test away with an app, and then build your own functionality if you find that it works. I think quizzes are a wonderful example. I've seen a lot of people try to build their own quiz, and that can work if you want to have it be super custom and beautiful. But if you're trying to get data quickly and trying to test, all of that is so hard to build. Engineering on Shopify is difficult, as the Replo and Novel team can attest, and you have to keep up with a lot of security and stability features. You have to keep up with new theme developments. You have to play nice with other apps. So if you're managing that on your own, it's going to be pretty hard and a high engineering lift, so make that decision if it's something that's really going to set you apart. I guess I'll end it with.
Yeah, I would say too, the skill set capabilities you have on your team, right? Like, what is like the people capital that you have, right? Like, the comment I made earlier about seeing such outdated sites or outdated functions on the site, right? Those brands are in that situation because there was somebody at the time that was able to execute or build that thing very sort of white glovey, right? And now that doesn't exist anymore, right? So you really have to take a step back and say, is this something I'm only going to get once? Or will I have that maintenance and that pro or expert around for a long period of time? I think one of our brands is a gel nail company, right? And they absolutely crush it on TikTok and Instagram, right? They don't have a tremendous amount of skill set from their people team in video, right? So it probably doesn't make a bunch of sense for them to build a video application, right? So just thinking about where you sit in terms of your vertical, and will you have the skill set over time to maintain the thing you're looking to build versus buy?
Yeah, definitely agree. I guess follow up on that. What are other ways that you qualify whether an app is great or not? Do you look at reviews, ratings? What are some of the things that you look for when identifying or qualifying these applications?
Yeah, I would say talk to other brands. There are a tremendous number of resources out there for you to understand the efficacy of a particular solution. Case studies have become, a expectation from companies. So demand the case studies. I spoke about referrals earlier. Ask for referrals if you don't know anyone that's already utilizing the applications. Reviews are helpful. But I find when customers really get that person-to-person communication, there's a much richer exchange and a really great understanding of reality versus, what somebody put together in a review. So, my recommendation is, if you don't have someone to talk to, ask for someone to talk to that's utilized the app. There are also a number of applications, most of them today, that have a free trial period or some sort of freemium model where you can start utilizing without ever paying for it. Take advantage of that, right? Jump in and start testing. One area that both Lauralynn and I are passionate about is this idea of testing. Make sure you're constantly iterating and learning for yourself. And that free trial is a great way to do so.
Yeah. Definitely agree.
Also, the reviews are helpful. I think you also need to make sure you know what you're looking for, right? Like, are you looking for something really, really heavy, or do you prefer something light? Do you want to have something that's like a super connector app or just a very bespoke function? We have a great size chart app, one of the best out there, that is incredible for all different brands at all different types to set different size charts for all their products. And it has a really cool recommender feature that's a level up in price. Not everyone will need a recommender. So it's really helpful if people go into it knowing what they want to get out of it, especially if you have comps. If you're like, hey, look, I love Cuts Clothing, their site, how they do this thing. Can your app do something similar? That's always very, very easy, because if you're emailing support and you're trying to say, hey, does your app do this? It's a lot harder to describe exactly what you're looking for with words. And if you can share with the support team or the sales reps a comp, that's super helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah. So word of mouth, free trials, looking for comps. Absolutely agree with all those things. So a question for both of you. What are the most common revenue generating traps operators can avoid?
Yeah, I would say the one thing that Lauralynn mentioned earlier, which is understanding the economics of your business, right? Make sure you understand, how you make money, and that will set you up for success. I'll give you an example. You knowing where your margins are will allow you to bundle products together or offer a discount, in a way where you're not losing on the sale. But I know there's this common thread that we keep talking about, back to the basics. Understanding, where you're spending and where you're making money is really an area that I think is undervalued and not understood by many brands we speak to.
Totally. I'd add to that saying the other traps related to knowing your business are, especially we've been feeling this a lot with the COVID shakeout of inventory issues, not being prepared. Like, if you're getting your inventory from overseas, you need to make sure you have it in-house for the big sales, and not only have it in-house, but have it so that you can send it on by sea and not air. So many people this year got in trouble not in trouble, but they have to pay extra to air inventory over, and there goes so much of your margin. And then who knows how long that'll be at customs. So being really prepared with inventory and over prepared, especially now. I'd say another one is not adjusting when the market or your customers do. I know so many examples of folks that when Facebook wasn't working, they just kept on with their budgets for Facebook spend and they didn't change. Now looking back, like how much money did they waste when Facebook stopped working and they just kept funneling money into it. So it's easy to have your head down and run your business, but talking to people, joining webinars like this, going to conferences, getting in Slack groups where other operators are talking is critical, because then you can step out of your own head and figure out the challenges other people are having and learn from them.
There's also this idea of like paying attention to like the consumer trends, right? Like far too often, we see, customers who have kind of put a shade up to what's going on social media, which is it blows my mind. But there's so much activity, so much engagement that brands are driving through those platforms, and it's not okay to kind of turn a blind eye to it, right? Understand that there's a new generation of buyers that's coming, into the scene, and you need to be communicating with them in a way that's comfortable with them, right? I think this is where a lot of my passion for bringing video to your website comes from, right? We're seeing the power of Instagram Reels and TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and now Amazon, just announcing their own shopping video experience, right? There's a reason for it. There's a shift in how consumers are really, absorbing their information and making purchasing decisions. So really stay attuned to what's going on in consumer behaviors. And, I think it will help in providing that beautiful, 11-star customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, I guess a little further on the content and creative side. Do you have any tips on content that converts best?
Yeah, absolutely. So day in and day out, I'm working with different pieces of content across our portfolio of brands. Just some quick hitters that are important to keep in mind. Short form vertical video is how consumers are consuming video. That doesn't mean the traditional YouTube landscape video is not effective, but what it's saying is that consumers are taking their phone and they're keeping it in their hand longer than ever before. The average amount of time that Gen Z is spending on their phone is 20 hours a week. Pause for a second and think about it.
That's a part-time job.
Yeah, 20 hours a week with the cell phone in their hand, watching short form vertical video. The tip to take away from that is when you're shooting content or when you're working with a user or an influencer, make sure you're getting content that's optimized for that full screen experience, right? When that experience is immersive, that purchasing decision becomes much, much easier for that consumer or shopper to make.
Grant, what about subtitles and sound? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so subtitles are absolutely a value add to video content. We err on the side of recommending subtitles in closed captioning, however you want to speak to it, in videos, because many consumers are watching video on mute. If you think about your own behavior, is your phone on? Does it have the sound on or the sound off most of the time? You can answer that question, but it just goes to show the value of closed captioning and why it's important to get your message across even when the sound's not on. In terms of audio, there are some technical restrictions that browsers and applications put on audio. But what I'll say about audio is that when somebody does get the video in a fully immersive mode, so taking up that full screen, they're more likely to take the video off of mute than not. So closed captionings are on the side of adding closed captionings to your video. and audio is totally fine. Just understand that it's not going to be a driving force behind the conversion.
So like the video needs to carry itself as a silent movie.
Totally. And on that particular point, we see sometimes brands will upload or bring video from socials that are like 5 seconds long, right? And the 5-second video sort of came out of this era of a recommendation that was, hey, make your videos as short as possible. But it's important to take away that the average video length for engagement is anywhere from 21 to 34 seconds, right? I know it's pretty specific, but if you look across all of the short form video on TikTok and Instagram, the average video with the most engagement is in that sweet spot. So make sure you're thinking about video length as an important facet of the engagement or conversion that you're looking for. And then the last thing I'll say on this topic is make sure that the video content are real users, right? We see a significant difference in conversion when the user-generated content are real users. The consumer out there today understands when something's highly produced versus when it's a real user, and they're preferring a real use case over it. So
I read something funny where recently someone was partnering with brands and they kept pronouncing the brand's names wrong. And so the brand had to be like, can you please just shoot it again? Here's how you say it.
Yeah, if I'm new to producing content or new to, for instance, like TikTok, where do I start? How do I figure out how to learn these platforms, and like where do I start from a content production standpoint?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Start testing. This is I think a skill set that will transcend across many different parts of your business, but get your phone camera out and start taking video of someone utilizing your product, or offer some of your users a discount for providing, their content themselves. You really do have to start, opening your wings up a little bit into areas that aren't too familiar. I will say at Novel, we've put together an exhaustive list of creator platforms across all different budgets. And what I'll do, Justin, is I'll share that with you, so you can include it with the content here, and we can make sure that you can tap into, as a listener here, the platforms where we're seeing most of our customers utilize. And again, it's budget friendly in that we go from the no to low budget all the way up to the tens of thousands for pieces of content. So be sure to check that out when I share it. When you do have the content, I'll leave you with this on the creative front. Look for ways to repurpose it, right? If you're leaning into Instagram, don't forget there's also TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and your website. You have many different platforms where you're communicating with customers. And if you're finding something that works on one channel, it's a great time to take a step back and say, how do we drive more value out of this one asset across our whole customer life cycle? We have customers today that take their shoppable video that they've embedded on their site, and they drive from their SMS campaigns and from their email campaigns directly to that shoppable video. It's a great example on how they're looking for creative ways to repurpose existing content that did well in one channel, and now has the potential to do well elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely agree with the repurposing. You can take something from YouTube and splice it up and put it on Instagram and TikTok. You can put it in your newsletter. So many ways to repurpose that content.
What do you guys say though to the folks? Because I've heard this sentiment before of the people who say we don't have the ability to focus on more than one channel. We're too lean, our budgets are too thin. Which one should we do? We can only do one.
Yeah, so I think the what is important is that you're showing those brands the tools that allows them to make a one-to-many sort of impact. So I think of like the Hootsuites of the world, right? There's many platforms out there, but the ability for you to jump on to a platform and actually get the content out to multiple different sources at the same time. So same effort, but larger impact. I also, many times, I was just on a call a couple hours ago with a brand that said, we don't have any content. We don't have video anywhere, right? And what I'll do is I'll pull up, I'll Google, their brand with just Instagram. And I pulled up about 50 different pieces of short form video about the brand. And sometimes it's just looking for it, right? It's just understanding that there are users out there, there are consumers out there that are utilizing your product, and you need to be more resourceful, in understanding and kind of capturing those pieces of content.
Yeah, definitely agree. Actually, question for both of you. You mentioned Hootsuite. I know there's other platforms like Buffer or Hype Fury. What do you all use for hosting across, multi-channel? What are the tools that you're using?
Yeah, we utilize Hootsuite, which is why I used it as an example. But yeah, we leverage Hootsuite to post across our channels. We more recently have taken a bit of I'd say doubling down on our LinkedIn and TikTok approaches, right? So we've breaking those outside of Hootsuite to focus on them a little bit more meticulously, if you will. And we just want a little bit more control over what's going on there in terms of the native tools that are available within each of those platforms.
And are you changing the messaging based on the different platform, or is presenting the same type of messaging for each one of these platforms?
It shifts a little bit across the platforms. I would say the general takeaway is consistent, right? The what we want you to get out of it, but there are different styles that are necessary across platform, right? So in the example that I just gave for TikTok versus LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn has a very prescriptive sort of structure to what lands well, right? It's one line break in between every single sentence that you're typing, right? That's the type of content that the LinkedIn persona is used to and does well based on the LinkedIn algorithms. And I would say on the TikTok side, we're looking at how to be more brand focused, because the generation that's primarily leveraging TikTok, they're used to seeing a lot of user generated content. So how do we speak to the audience that's there?
That's great.
And what tool are you using to save all your videos? That's another question I get a lot from brands. Like, these are such big files. Where do I put them? Google Drive is impossible.
Yeah, so we actually on the Novel platform, we don't require customers to have their video in any one repository. We can connect directly to their social media platform. So you come onto the platform, sign into Instagram, sign into TikTok, and you can actually pull content that's already been utilized on those platforms, so they don't need to be saved anywhere. But in terms of like video content itself, we do use the cloud products that you just named, Google, Dropbox.
I've heard Air is one of the best now for like teams of brands to have all of their assets and store them.
Have you heard of what are the benefits of Air? Like
Air is really great. I actually just advised a brand to start using them because they were using the Drive and it was all over the place, and it's not great for design work because you have to download the file, then re-upload it, and there's version control issues, as well as tagging. Air is a lot more visual. It's more collaborative in some ways on the design front. And the tagging is a little bit more built for creative work, less all files.
Got it. So there is some creation going on.
And it can plug in really well with like Monday or ClickUp, which if you think about a creative org, like that's what they're doing all day, every day.
Cool. That's great. So on Replo, we're seeing, tons of people constantly A/B testing their landing pages. They're testing copy. They're testing images. They're testing CTAs. Why do we need to test? What are you testing? What types of tools are you using to test?
Cool. I can jump in here. I think first off, having a culture of being open to testing is critical today. There's always a balance in decision making of art and science, and breeding a culture that can value both of them, can value the importance of like leading with creative or leading with conversion, and being able to have constructive conflict is critical. And that's what I look for in any organization I work with. So once you have that, and if you don't have that and you work on building it, start small, start tiny, just get everyone used to it, not only used to the idea of testing, but also how to absorb the results from it. So one of the easiest ways, I think, is like if you're using Klaviyo or your email tool or PostScript or Attentive, you can start testing with your emails. They have such easy tools to do it. Once you get an idea of like how testing works, how split testing works, how to read the results, then you can move on to your site. You can use the tools that Replo offers. There's so many tools. Google Optimize. You can even bring in more testing with pop-ups from Klaviyo or Attentive onto your site to test like signups. And I definitely think you should be testing the homepage once you understand that unique value prop. Maybe you want to lead with one benefit versus another and see if the sustainably made versus free shipping, how do those do if it's on your homepage or your product page? Those are the places that I'd say are they're like really fertile ground to test. And again, if you're looking at your Google Analytics and you're seeing that people are just landing right on a collection page, maybe you have a certain ad, a collection page or a landing page, treat that as a homepage or a product page as well, and test the key points there. You don't need to test everything. Use your brain a bit to figure out, don't test the obvious things. Like, should your add to cart button be an eye-catching color? Yeah. Don't test between a not eye-catching color and an eye-catching color. Should you have free shipping if you're offering it on your page? Yeah, you probably don't need to test that. Just do it. Test like the order of the importance of the benefits. We have an app called Dexter for A/B testing of product prices. Whether you use that app or something else, if you're open to testing the price of your products, I would suggest it. And use an app that allows you to not only test on that exact product detail page, but actually stays with the person through their remarketing journey. So it's not confusing for them. But there's a lot of great insight you can get on testing sale prices, testing before the big sales that are coming up. So in sum there, start small, make sure you're building a culture of testing and like letting your company embrace it. And then soon it will be an always on approach where no email goes out without a test. You're always testing something on the site, and work with tools like Replo and Novel and Dexter at Staytuned that allow you to do that easily.
Yeah, I'm going to just double down really quick on the cultural piece of this, because I think where the culture starts is becoming comfortable and making it acceptable to fail, right? When you experiment and you start testing, majority of what you'll test will fail, right? Newsflash, it's not always going to be, rainbows and sunshine when you're testing. I heard this quote just yesterday, and it sort of applies to what we're talking about. And it's good leaders test their hypothesis true, and great leaders test their hypothesis untrue or false, right? Or try to kind of debunk whatever their hypothesis is. And I may have butchered that a little bit. But
the null hypothesis, was that in there? Great leaders test the null hypothesis false?
No. It didn't get too scientific. The takeaway is that you should not be trying to prove your hypothesis true, right? There's this, I think human nature sort of tends to lean itself towards, hey, I did a great job, or hey, this is improving because I put some level of effort or energy into it. And it's really important that you take a step back from all the wins and say, it's okay if this thing doesn't do well, right? Whatever we're testing. I also think on the tooling front, it's not absolutely necessary to have eloquent testing tools or a tool for testing, right? There are cheaper ways to understand whether something is effectively working or not, right? We at Novel have 2-week syncs. Every 2 weeks, we sync with a number of our brands to look at our insight analytics. So what came back, right? And it's a conversation. It's a, hey, did this video perform or convert the way that you expected? What does success look like to you, right? So open the conversation about testing, right? Be vigilant about, finding the truth in what it is that you're testing. What was that?
Yeah, be objective with it.
Be objective about it. Exactly.
One trick I've used for myself, because I can get emotionally involved in tests, is to try to set up my go or no-go situations beforehand. So some tests you're just looking to learn and it's objective and you're just trying to find, which color works better. Others, if you're really trying to see, I need to have a certain conversion on this to put a bunch of ad dollars behind it, know what your key performance indicators are before you go into that. So you can say, if my conversion is above 10% on this page, giddy up, we're going, we're putting a ton of money behind this. If it's between 5 and 8%, I need to spend some time with it. I don't need to throw the whole thing away, but I need to figure out how to get it higher. And if it's below that, there's no way I'm putting a dime behind this. And those are just hypothetical conversion numbers for a made up business. But if you are one to get a little emotionally attached to something and try to push an idea through, know that about yourself and try to set yourself up for success by doing objective exercises like that one.
Yeah, definitely agree. Love the idea of building, culture around testing and being comfortable with failing. And, that's a part of the process, right? And then understanding your KPIs going in it's just a really great way to think about the structure of testing. And, so we talked about all these different applications that can help with testing, but, all those things add up. And what if I'm bootstrapping or I'm on a budget? What are some creative ways that you can, get access to applications if you're bootstrapping or you're on a budget?
Yeah, I mentioned a little bit of this earlier, but tech companies, app companies, they rely on customers to survive, right? There are certain assets like case studies and reviews that help drive business for these companies. And I think that when you ask about creative ways, one way that we've creatively worked with our brands is really creating a case study or in exchange for reviews, offering them the technology for a period of time to allow them to experiment, allow them to leverage the platform. There's so many applications out there, but behind all of those applications are real human people, right? And sometimes all it takes is the question is asking, is there anything that we can do to help your business allow sort of us to utilize this product?
Yeah, I love that. Just ask, because bigger companies, maybe they don't have flexibility on pricing, but they could do exactly what Grant just said. There's also when folks reach out to us and our app is almost perfect for them, but they have a little bit of a different use case. Most times we can, well, it depends on the case, but we can work with them. So for example, one of my other favorite apps is called EV Events. and it allows people to use their products as ticketing events. So people that throw concerts, have yoga classes, do like stand-up live, use this app, and it's incredible because it allows people to use Shopify to actually sell tickets alongside their other products. But we had someone reach out to us just recently who's running a raffle, and they're going to sell something like 7 million tickets. And our pricing structure was crazy for them because they were going to sell these tickets at a low price. They reached out, told us a bit about what they were working on. We're like, yeah, giddy up, let's work together. We'll come up with a custom pricing tier for you guys because this is so meaningful. So had they not asked, had they just looked at our product detail or our app listing page and read some of the reviews, they would have probably kept going because they would have been priced out. But because they reached out, we're able to make something work with them. And I think, and it's fun because then you get the human connection. It's not just a bunch of zeros and ones, but you actually get to know the person on the other side.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, both of you. Really, really enjoyed this conversation today. We're going to post this again on YouTube and on social channels. And we'll also follow up with contact information and some of the resources that were mentioned in this discussion today in those channels. So thank you both, Lauralynn and Grant. Really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll have to do this again real soon. It's been wonderful.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.